but a developer is responsible to develop the things. Okay, so if you want to minimize the technical debt, I'm here to start with the 9 practices to minimize this technical debt. So let's start that. So the first practice is, even though it's very much similar to what we are doing in the financial debt. So suppose you are going to take a home loan. What you will do? The first thing, what you will do? I'm not talking about saving. I'm talking about how you will decide this is good for you. This much is your capacity to take as a loan. On what basis? And that's the first practice. So determine one's living budget. How much is required to live properly? And in terms of development, how it is relevant. So let's look at that. So what is living budget in terms of development, software development? A minimal output in a day that needs to produce to meet your deadlines. And that is what your living budget is. So whenever we are planning our work, we should estimate based upon that living budget and plan for self-code review and refactoring. Because whatever is left, that we can utilize for our self-code review and refactoring. Now one can tell that if they have got only 8 hours, how can they find out the self-code review and refactoring? In case of Agile, when we are doing that estimate, the estimate is done by the team. It's not by a manager or a person, one person who has done that estimation. So always, and even though if the manager is there, he has to think about that let's plan for self-code review and refactoring. And so if one plans for 8 hours work in a day, one should plan to spend X hours for development and Y hours for review and refactor for his own code. And he should understand if X hour is his living budget. It may be the 7 hours, or it may be 6 hours, or it may be sometimes 8 hours itself. So he has to plan. But what I am saying here, why the step here is start thinking how we can review our own code. We have to review our own code. We have to audit ourselves to see that whether anything can be improved in terms of code and design. The value of action should be determined by the developer, not by a manager. So one day is equal to 8 hours. One day development is equal to X hours development plus Y hours review and refactoring. And this X hour development is nothing but your living budget. So what is the best recommendation? Always keep hours for review and refactoring in your estimate. And in Agile world, whenever we are doing sprint planning practice of Scrum, that is very good because it talks about your availability and the hours is available for each of the team member. So that is one of the good practice we can do. And with that, with the help of these two, we can just do a better planning in terms of our living budget. These two. What this baby is trying to do. Oh, she is trying to smell. It's very good. You can smell. And as a developer, always we are ready and we are very good to smell the other's code. But here I am talking about smell your own code. So smell one's own code, that is a practice too. So if you have to work on any other code, immediately you will say that this is wrong, this has not been done in a proper way, or something has not been taken care. As an individual, when we are on that same situation, we are not doing proper justice with our own implementation. So that's what the practice 2 is smell one's own code. But how can we do that? It's very simple to say, but very difficult to practice it. So review and understand where the code went wrong and where the unwanted code exists. Take steps to reduce, remove unwanted code in these areas, right? It may be possible that you are avoiding certain situations where you are doing the anticipation also. And normally we find very less time or no time to review or smell our own code because we are always struggling to meet these deadlines. So believe me, the practice 1 when you will start, that determining your own living budget, it will help you to follow this practice 2. So both are independent. So practice 2 is dependent on practice 1. So how good you are on determining your own living budget, you can smell or you can just make the proper things in your code. So the recommendations here are, first, define coding standards and best practices. We will talk on that on the practice 7 and make the team aware of this. A checklist should be created and developed, right? Use it to make sure that the defined coding standard has been not ignored. Lots of time if you are doing it through the manual process, it's difficult. So you can do some automation also. There are lots of code analysis tools available which can be used to do that. And wherever a manual effort is required, definitely we should do that. Practice, third practice. You are working on another code or you are working on your own code. You saw one problem. Instead of jumping to the solution, always go in the root. And that's the practice 3. Find the root cause for over-anticipating. Might be you have anticipated something else, and the actual situation is something different. So lots of times we do because we feel it better. Okay, I have to write down this layer because of this may be required in the future or some other reason as well. So one may introduce additional complexity, right, in the code to cover some unpractical scenarios. This may not be required and eventually make the code more complex. So always try to remove the accidental complexity rather than essential complexity because it's very, very challenging to distinguish between the accidental versus the essential. But always try to remove the accidental and keep the essential complexity. Treat with these issues by finding the root cause of over-anticipating problems, or wherever we are finding any problem situation, you can just look at that and try to overcome with that situation. And this is going to get a relief from your technical debt as well, because the more and more complexity is there, more and more scenarios are there which is making it more rigid. That is, that debt is more and more there. The recommendation is, when we will talk about the practice 4, 5, and 6, they will help us to overcome. Credit cards. Okay. We are having lots of credit cards nowadays, especially in our MNCs, working people. And this is one of the situations when you will do it very frequently, you will find a situation, okay, let's cut this money. So optimal use of your technical credit And the word technical credit, what I mean here is, whenever we are anticipating in design and code, is nothing but technical credit, which you have to pay it later. But might be you have implemented now. And that anticipation is adding a complexity to the design and code, which may be required or might not be required. So if it is required, then it's okay. But if it's not required, then. And this is very important aspect in coding and use unless one is confident about future needs. One should keep anticipating. So my first thing is, if you remember that Agile principle says, make it simple. So keep it simple. Anticipate as less as possible and with a valid ground. If you have the valid ground, yes, you can go for this technical credit. So do the optimal use of that technical credit. So recommendation is don't assume, let's anticipate. If assumed something, discuss it within team, and then based upon the common consensus, do it. Practice 5. So where are we in this image? So person is about to get down in that water. Take help from others. Don't hesitate. Lots of the time we feel that, oh, if I will ask, somebody will feel he doesn't know. Please remove that part. Because it should not be at this situation you are asking for help. Because no one can help you unless a Superman is there. And in the real life, it's really difficult to get Superman. So that's why don't hesitate and try to take help from others. And there is no harm if you are going and asking somebody for the help. Practice it. Stop keeping up with the Joneses. So don't follow blindly others. I will just try to show you one video on this regard. Okay. It's one of the video that advertisement which we have seen in the TV commercials. If you are not able to see, I will just tell you it's from the Shiksha, where one guy is saying that I'm going to join an engineering college, and rest all is following him there without understanding whether it is required for them or not. So that is what the practice 6 is. Basically, it says that do not follow blindly anyone. First, try to listen to everyone and do the best one. I will tell you one thing. 6-7 years back, almost 7 years back, I was looking at one legacy code, and I saw that there were 6 web services has been written for a small web application. I'm saying small, that is required only 3 to 4 pages. That's it. And each web service was having only one method. And when I dig into, because it's a debatable whether it was required or not, so when I dig into, I came to know it has been implemented because they heard that in another team they were using web service. So they thought they will also learn and they will use it here. And it was not required. So lots of times we are hearing that, okay, that new technology came, let's use that without understanding the need. And that is where we are making that whole application with more depth. So practice 7. How this picture looks like. Well organized. The city is well organized. The traffic is well organized. I got a question also from Paula, and the question about is practice 4. So which is optimal use of technical credit in terms of assumption? I will look at that because I'm finding some difficulty to read that. Okay, first I will continue this, and then on the question and answer session time I will just look at those. So the practice 7 is the best practice. So the first thing is follow the best practices and coding standards. So the first thing is within the team or the development team, we have to define that what are the coding standards we have to maintain. What are the best practices we should follow? Because in the same code, you will find that people are in the team, they are maintaining the different coding standards. And as per their own convenience, they are doing that. And which is good at certain aspect, but again, what I mean to say here is, if there will be a uniformity, it will make lots of differences. The it practice says it talks about that you start refactoring the technical credit. And what I mean here is technical credit account, wherever we have done lots of anticipation. So look at if you have lots of card bills, what normally we do. We cannot pay all at a time. There are different scenarios. It may be possible that we can pay, then well and good. But if we are not able to pay all at one time, what we can do? And that is what we are talking about. Let's start refactoring. Which are the things we will pay first? Which are the things we will pay later? And we have to think more which one. And based upon that, we can start doing that. And it's very, very required, it's essential in case of all the legacy applications. So in case of legacy, it's good that we have added some additional new features, but at the same time we have to see how much we can refactor that legacy application so that if there is any gap, we can just remove that. If no coding standards, nothing has been used there, can we start refactoring slowly and see the difference? And that's the whole idea. Because lots of time you will find a difficulty when you are working on a legacy product or legacy application where these things have not been maintained from the beginning. So now if you are finding a huge safety there. And if you will go and you will ask to your customer or the client or your manager or your stakeholders, I need 3 months or years to refactor that and remove that or minimize the technical debt, no one will be ready because it's already working application on the production. They only want to add some additional features. In that situation, it says that we start refactoring. So let's elaborate that what it's trying to talk about in that terms. So only refactor one part at a time until it is improved. Remember, we need to see the depth is reducing. So try to see where and which are the part is really required. Larger refactoring on one part will show this better than refactoring on several parts of the code at the same time. So don't jump into that, okay, I will just, in this module also I have to do, or this function also I have to do. At whatever level you are thinking, you just go one by one. You just try to see, take one part, maybe one small, one big method as well. If you can just refactor that, or maybe a small method. So wherever you are finding, it is possible to do that refactoring without changing your schedule and other things much, which may be required to change a little bit. But if you will ask for a large number of months or years to do that refactoring, probably no one will accept that. So in that scenario, you just try to start refactoring the technical credit account. That means wherever the more and more debt is there, and which required a small effort to do that, and which can show that debt reducing also in terms of that application is improved, in terms of the changes it can take or lesser time it can take to manage the new changes. Practice 9, the last one. What we do when we get the extra time, as a developer, what we do. Suppose I have taken given an estimate of 16 hours. It's completed in 8 hours. What we do? What do we do in a free time? Yes, still there is some time to start implementation, or the same thing, the extra time. That is nothing but your free time. What do we do? And that is what always feel that there is a scope of improvement. So in the code as well, we can do some improvement. So we have to plan it out. We have to manage the time properly, such a way that extra and the free time is utilized in a proper way to pay that debt back. And that is what it's talking about. But remember this, you should not fall into this situation. So don't try to save your time, because if you will try to save your time in this way, probably you are making more messy that whole entire application and the code. Right? And the last thing is, don't say there is still time, or maybe the next time I will do that, because always there it gets too late. So it should not happen that you are in that at the time of production release, you are finding that, oh, now we cannot do that, right? So that is what the practice 9 is. So utilize your extra time